Okay, I'll do the little rollout. I might as well comment on a few of the things I didn't comment on the last few weeks. You saw me on that other video walk past Officer Mitchell, but he had just come up to us, 10 minutes before. He said, "You all have to go." He was mad. In a public park. And Crow and Claire, I think they did ask, but what law is being broken? Now, what they normally do is if they tell you to move, this happened with Tim and Debbie, two people that Tim was writing a journal. Mentioned this a few weeks ago, and he was by the underpass. There was a turnaround, but there were a lot of other people there. We just recently had the 4th of July weekend and all, but Tim was not using it. But another officer pulled up to Tim and said, "You guys got to go. You too. Everybody here has to leave." But there were other people, tourists or whatever, that were right there fishing. But Tim asked, "But I'm writing a journal." He was writing a journal. Tim's a Christian. But the officer said, "You go." Now, if they do that without cause, but once they give the warning, if I didn't have the camera on and walked through, Officer Mitchell must have seen my videos by now. Then, after they give you the warning, even if it's without cause, then they arrest you. This happens so much on the street. The old man Bob, I told you about him, but he's got a business, but he actually lives in his truck. But my friend Albert works for him. But he said one day, recently, another officer, I know the name, but I'm not going to give the name. It wasn't Mitchell. But he just, Bob was parked by the water where everybody could park, fish and all types. It wasn't illegal. But he heard the cop siren behind him, go off. And he looked, and the cop, I know this officer, I won't give the name, he just went, "Go." And Bob was telling me, he's an old man, he's got a business, he's not an alcoholic, or he's a good Christian man, by the way. And he said, "Well, I moved," he says, "but I'm not used to that." Nobody should be used to that. At the Fire Department, there's a dynamic that happened with me after I saw some of this happen with me. If you're working under a captain, or if I was a temporary captain or whatever, and then you have somebody that comes on duty and he's got seniority, and some guys say, "I don't want to work on a particular shift or whatever," because he'll find things like maybe to get the less senior officer guy, firefighter's mad or whatever. And then you got to put up with that, "Oh, I sweep this or do this." But this happens now. This is what I've seen. This is not the first time. What I see on the street is civilian policing. Even if there was a mailman in New York City that was arrested a couple years ago, but he was black, I believe, but he was delivering mail. And the cops, somehow they wanted to get through or whatever, but he was actually delivering mail. And they pissed those cops off. This was New York City a few years ago. They arrested him. And all the mail was left. Now I think but they just did it because they were pissed off at that guy. But what you do not understand within society is there's a very high standard when you take people, threaten them with arrest or hold them captive because you're having a bad day. Now, if my friend Crow and Claire, if they went back to the park, there was no cause for that officer to say out of the park now. But if they went back, he would have had, some of them will arrest those guys without cause. And there have been times where that happened. That's not a slight thing. I consider that equal to kidnapping if you don't have cause. It's not a game we're playing. My friend Dawn, that is now, they're going to have so many code enforcement against Dawn for things like chipped paint on the interior. All of that has to be fixed within 15 days. And then, now, code enforcement is run by the cops, and they have used it that way. So what you have to realize is not just a little game you play. You don't, we're not, quote, on duty, and there's a captain that says, go sweep now. And the rookie doesn't want to sweep, and shit, he had to work. You brought that into the population within policing when you have allowed these things to go by for many years. That was the commentary I was making on the tragedy of the slain New York City officer. They're not recognized. That's definitely unjustified, what happened to that woman. But what the people within the country whose experience creates, they're not looking at. I was on the streets all day. I was up all night with my friend Austin. As a matter of fact, some interesting things came up. But I'm with guys that have backgrounds and records. I'm not worried to be with my friends. But you know, when I see, because none of them can come up to me. If they wanted to start something, of course, that happens. But none of them can actually come up to me when I'm sitting somewhere and say, move. And if a friend said that and got into a violent thing, yes, I'd fight. But now when you have an officer without cause come up to me and say, move out of this park, under threat of, now if you come back, if I want, I'd just arrest you right now. And they do that to those other guys. Mitchell must have realized I videotaped these types of things. That's not a slight or light. Now, why mention the shooting of the cop? That's unjustified, that's uncalled for. But people don't realize, why do some people eventually flip like that? The man that carried out that murder of that officer. It's not a one-time thing. It's people that have experience with this throughout their lives, which a lot of the minority communities have. They realize it's almost like that same dynamic at work. Oh, this guy's out again. This guy can run me off the road again or whatever. Many people in the country have experienced that. And what I see in the more rookie type guys out there or less, I see that dynamic. So I don't have any of my, I was, like I said, up late with Austin. When, you know, I was going to help him today. He has to go to his probation, and he needed $12 to take his test. So he's worried if he's going to not make it today and go out there. And so I put an extra 12 in my pocket, 13, one for the bus if he needed that. So but I didn't see him today. Many of these people got used to getting arrested. Well, they got used to being told, move, and they ask questions. Like, well, why did I have to do that? But they just obey. They learn to be like, okay, even an older man like Bob Coleman that I told you about. They don't want to go through the hassle of if a cop turned the siren on, didn't even get out of the car, and just gave him the sign, move it. And the old man said, I'm not used to that. But he did that. No. You guys have a priority to obey law. And if you think it's just like, oh, I was in a bad mood a certain day, or possibly the history of the arrests that were made that were illegal arrests with the guys on things I discussed before, they didn't have a no trespass, but you wanted to get that guy. You said, my friend John Cagle, cop pulled up to him on the bus stop once. How's your day? What you doing? And John Cagle honestly said, just enjoying God's blessed day. But the cop had a bad day. He slammed that thing into the park and arrested him. For what? Said he was being disrespectful. You guys are getting away with crimes when you do that. Okay? Just, you're getting away with crimes when